Bonjour à tous. Happy World Teachers Day. I'm Andrew King from the Canadian Teachers Federation. To begin our segment, we'd like to share a video with you. In fact, it's a teaser for a new campaign we're about to launch. The campaign, funded by the federal government, aims to address a teacher shortage. Yes, there is a teacher shortage in Canada. Et c'est particulièrement le cas dans la communauté minorité de langue française. Cette vidéo, la première en série, fait la promotion de la profession auprès des jeunes Canadiennes et Canadiens avec le groupe d'humour Improntienne. Enjoy.
Ben, on est super fiers d'avoir été nommé ambassadeur de la campagne Enseigner, ça me parle.
Oui, puis en fait, je pense qu'au sein des protéines, on a presque tous un parent qui a été enseignant ou enseignante.
Oui, ma mère.
Ben, moi les deux.
Je peux-tu en emprunter un?
Non. Puis, on a tous compris vraiment à quel point c'est une belle profession, puis c'est une profession importante.
Oui, puis il y a un besoin d'enseignantes puis d'enseignants comme
vrai,
partout au pays, là.
Moi, il y a un enseignant au secondaire dont je me rappellerai toujours, c'est Monsieur Dubois.
Madame Sylvie en maternelle.
Lui, c'était mon enseignant de théâtre.
Tu fais du théâtre, toi?
Dude, je suis comédien.
Ah, c'est cute que tu penses ça. Madame Sylvie, elle était super organisée. Tes règlements étaient clairs, puis moi, ça m'aidait parce que je savais exactement quoi faire.
T'étais-tu chouchou?
Non.
Y a-tu vraiment personne qui t'a marqué? Monsieur Dubois m'a montré que j'étais capable de faire autre chose que des petits sketchs pout-pout, tu sais, puis que je pouvais faire du vrai théâtre.
Tu te fais pas mal encore du pout-pout.
T'as vraiment rien, man?
Non, je pense pas.
J'avais été un élève modèle toute l'année.
Oh, God.
Mais la dernière semaine d'école, j'ai accroché mon chevalet avec toutes les pots de peinture, puis ça a tombé sur le chevalet d'à côté, puis sur l'autre chevalet, puis sur l'autre chevalet. Puis, écoute, le plancher, là, il était sale à grandeur. C'était comme une cascade de dégâts, tu sais.
Un domino de dégâts.
Oui, c'est ça.
Un wash de gouache.
C'est mauvais.
Oh non, oui, Monsieur Leroux. Monsieur Leroux, mon enseignant de 5e année. Un jour, Eric l'a comme mis au défi pour faire une course, puis en fin de compte, c'est Monsieur Leroux qui a gagné la course.
Ça n'a tellement pas rapport, là. Puis Monsieur Dubois, il y avait une façon de nous faire travailler en nous laissant aller, tu sais, pour qu'on apprenne de nos erreurs, genre.
C'est vrai que t'es rendu bon à faire des erreurs. T'es vraiment...
C'est tellement niaiseux, là.
Ah, j'étais tellement déçu de moi-même. Je passais le restant de la journée à pleurer dans mon coin.
Classique.
Puis Madame Sylvie, ben, elle est venue me parler pendant 1 heure pour me réconforter. Tu sais, c'était vraiment plus qu'une spécialiste de peinture à l'eau.
C'est gentil, ça.
C'est cute. Et puis sans qu'on s'en rende compte, on est tous devenus plus autonomes et plus confiants. Autant plus confiants par rapport à notre talent d'acteur que par rapport à n'importe quoi qu'on pouvait accomplir dans la vie. Fait que là, c'est à votre tour. Parlez-nous d'une enseignante ou d'un enseignant qui a marqué votre vie à vous.
Envoyez ça en vidéo, 2 minutes, gros max.
Viens checker ça, il y a bien d'autres choses qui s'en viennent.
Welcome back. Now we'd like to provide you with a glimpse of the work that the CTF-FCE has carried out since the beginning of the pandemic to help member organizations and teachers across the country. With a combination of distance, online, and in-classroom teaching and learning, teachers have worked tirelessly to educate their students and to keep schools open safely. Since the outset of the pandemic, the CTF-FCE has worked closely with the federal government to help the most vulnerable and to keep schools as safe as possible. Secretary General Cassandra Hallett sat down with federal ministers Ahmed Hussein and Mariam Monsef to highlight our joint efforts with the government and to share what measures have been made to help public education, teachers, and vulnerable children and youth throughout these past months.
So thank you very much for joining us, Minister. It's really greatly appreciated. And of course, as you know, this has been a really trying period for Canadians, and one that we're all predicting is going to continue for some time. We've seen in particular the challenges that are being faced in schools across the country. And I know that you have school-aged children, so I'd be curious off the bat on a personal level, how has the transition back to school been for your family?
Well, it was the number one topic for conversation for the last number of weeks. It still is. Our 11-year-old son has gone back to school. We were confident in the plan that the school and the school board had with respect to keeping him safe and the plans that they had for social distancing, for cleaning supplies, and all the other pieces that went into that. So he's back. The one just younger than him, our 7-year-old, he has asthma. We just found out recently that he has asthma, so we're a little bit concerned about him. He hasn't gone back yet, but we are figuring out how that's going to look like. So he's getting homeschooled right now by my wife, but we are looking forward for him to go back as well. But we're just figuring out how that would work medically for him.
Of course, certainly, though, you've just conveyed in a nutshell how well you understand the challenges that so many Canadian families are facing, and you articulated some of the measures that we believe need to be in place to make schools safe for students and teachers.
And for the teachers, yes.
Exactly.
And we have to give parents the confidence that both the teachers and the students and the general staff in the schools are being kept safe while they are off to work or to school themselves. So, with our neighbors, with the community, in my own household, this has been an ongoing conversation, and I really recognize the concerns that parents have had on this, which is why we stepped up. We stepped up in a big way, and I was very, very proud to join the Prime Minister when he flew down to Toronto to make that important announcement of an investment by the federal government of $2 billion in the Safe Return to Class Fund. Really, really important investment that will make a big difference in schools right across our country, enable school boards to buy personal protective equipment, to get more cleaning supplies, improve their air ventilation system, do whatever, get additional spaces and so on. So this is something that we heard very loudly and clearly from parents, from members of parliament, from teachers and others, that more needed to be done. There were a lot of serious concerns around this, and so we felt that as a government that we should step up as well to help the provinces and the school boards safely restart the school year. And we know that this is an ongoing challenge, but we hope that the federal investment of $2 billion is going to make a difference in how we all adjust collectively to provide a safe and welcoming environment for students and for the teachers.
Wondering if there's a message you might like to send to Canadian families, knowing what a difficult year this is, knowing the many concerns that you've shared, that families across the country are feeling, particularly families that already have economic challenges or children with immune-compromised systems, etc. Knowing how essential schools are to the running of our country, literally for our country to work, we need a strong public education system. Is there a message you might like to share with Canadians?
First of all, I'd like to begin by thanking Canadian families for stepping up, for keeping each other safe, for following the public health advice of our world-class medical health professionals. Families have stepped up in a big way, and we have had their backs. We've promised to continue to have their backs. And very early in the pandemic, we had a one-time increase in the Canada Child Benefit for every child, up to $300 increase for every child for families who are receiving the Canada Child Benefit already. In addition to that, on July 20th, we increased the Canada Child Benefit again permanently. Again, to take into account the increase in the cost of living and raising children. We've provided the GST tax credit that has given families and individuals that extra bit of money to help with the pandemic, helped seniors with additional payments in OAS and GIS. So for families, we want to continue to be there. The Canada Emergency Response Benefit has helped keep families, keep employees to continue to earn an income that was lost due to employment. That is helping families as well. So is the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy that we've extended to next summer. If you look at the CERB, for those for the folks who are EI eligible, they will be transitioning into the EI system starting yesterday. And for those who are not EI eligible, we will introduce a new Canada Recovery benefit, which will help them as well as make further changes to the sickness benefits to help more individuals. So we want to be there and continue to be there. We have been there for Canadian families, but we want to continue to do that because we know we're not out of the woods yet and people need support. And we'll do whatever we can to maintain that support so that we can keep Canadians healthy and then we can have a strong recovery.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Huson. Your time is appreciated. The commitment of the federal government is deeply appreciated. As you say, we're not out of the woods yet with COVID-19. And that whole of society, all of government approach, at least from the perspective of the Teachers Federation, is going to continue to be much needed. So thank you again for making the time to chat with me. It is World Teachers Day, October 5th. Yeah. And we're celebrating the profession at this time. So thank you again.
Excellent. An excellent profession. I can tell you from a personal perspective, my teachers, both in primary school and in high school, were extremely instrumental in my life. And I remember their influence on me fondly and their sacrifice and their service to produce good citizens. So I have the deepest amount of respect for teachers, and I think teachers should be held in the highest regard by everyone in our community. You guys do an amazing job, and it's an honor to join you today.
Thank you again. Take good care.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Monsef. It's such a pleasure that you've joined me this evening for a chat as we honor World Teachers Day. I'd love to start by rolling the clock backward a little bit to when the pandemic abruptly hit our lives and changed the lives of Canadians in the month of March. What was your initial reaction at that time?
Oh, Cassie, hi, bonjour Anine, salam alaikum, and happy World Teachers Day. I think that the first thing I thought about, like everybody else, was my loved ones. I was in Ottawa, they were in Peterborough and all over the world. And then, like everybody else, I thought I should probably go to the grocery store. But soon after, that those personal questions left my mind, what we started to hear from Canadians, particularly those in the women's movement, was you got to look out for the safety of women and you got to look out for the safety of kids, because this thing, like every pandemic, like every crisis, is going to increase the rates of violence that they're going to endure. And that's how you came into my world, and you're a wonderful member. So I'm happy to be here, and I hope everybody's safe and well. I know it's been intense for you all.
Thank you. So from the Minister of Health through other ministers to our connection, as you would know better than anyone, through the coalition, we endeavored to address gender-based violence, food insecurity, and connectivity. Are you able to speak to what the government may do going forward? As you say, we're still in this pandemic. So whilst we all believe we've made contributions, there's still more to do, and would love to hear from government.
And I think mental health came up a lot too in those conversations. So where the federal government has jurisdiction, we're acting right away. And whether it was through CERB or through investments in charitable organizations around food security, the 1,000+ organizations across the country who were able to keep their doors open, their staff and clients safe, so that when women came to them in their hour of need, escaping violence and abuse, they had a place to go. That work where we have jurisdiction, we've stepped up. Where we don't have direct jurisdiction, we're partnering. So on connectivity, we're very close to rolling out our universal broadband fund to bring high-speed internet to every community across the country as soon as possible, and accelerating our timelines. On food security, there's an angle around agriculture. Canada is an agriculture superpower, and we see now through the pandemic how important it is to our sovereignty, to our health, to our well-being. We're also seeing the connection between income security and other realities. Like we know with CERB, one of the first things people did who got it, some of the most vulnerable, was they ate better. They ate better. So on gender-based violence, though, where is my direct connection? That big tent that we built with Safe Kids Initiative is probably one of the best things that's come out of this god-awful biblical mess that is COVID, because it's going to be a vehicle for implementation and collaboration for the national action on gender-based violence, for our ongoing response. We're moving forward with a national child care plan, and the partnership with teachers and professionals who make this their life's work and have connections to communities and individuals is one that I treasure. And I know that our government, particularly a guy I know who used to be a teacher himself, appreciate very much and are going to be leaning on you more. So please keep the lines of communication open. Please take care of yourself. The country probably more than ever is asking a lot of you, our teachers. And I think at the same time, probably more than ever, appreciate what you have been doing for all of us as a profession for generations. So take care of yourselves, because a lot is riding on your well-being, and we'll be there with you every step of the way, but do take care. Do take care.
Thank you very much, Minister. That's probably a very lovely note to end as we are celebrating October 5th, World Teachers Day. Is there anything final you'd like to say as we close?
When I was little, somebody would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd say, I want to be a teacher. And I got to tell you, after this experience with COVID and our partnership together, I am more convinced than ever that that noble profession that you've chosen is a place that I aspire to be a part of. So I thank you for that inspiration, and really thank you for the partnership and the friendships.
Well, thank you again, Minister, and for all of your efforts and the collaboration with the Canadian Teachers Federation. It is sincerely appreciated. Stay well.
One thing that's happened during the pandemic is an incredible increase in the collaboration with other civil society organizations. To share some of those relationships, I had the chance to speak with two CTF-FCE partners, the Canadian Women's Foundation and Boys and Girls Clubs of Canada, to talk about the collective response to the pandemic and what's changed since it began.
Paulette, it's great to see you. Months of working together throughout this pandemic, and it's nice to be here in this format. But unfortunately, things really haven't changed that much since we started down this path in March. I guess just to get into it, you know, we've seen this pandemic has really threatened the progress of women. I think that issue is starting to be discussed more and more, but something that I'd like to focus on with you. And we've seen that definitely with the Canadian Teachers Federation. From your position, from your role in your organization, what have you seen, and what are the true threats of the pandemic to women in the women's progress?
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. We've seen economic layoffs and cutbacks that have fallen heavily on women, and most dramatically on women living on low incomes who experience intersecting inequalities based on their racial backgrounds, the class that they're in, their disability, their education, their migration and immigration status, just to name a few. And it was also heartbreaking, I think, to read a report just this week that children in racialized families have been hit harder by the pandemic, and particularly as they were in lockdown with their families compared to children in white families. So we know, for example, that many working women are breaking under the increased burden of childcare and education, and it's staggering. So, for example, a recent survey that said that 1 in 3 women in Canada have considered quitting their jobs so that they can better manage their children and their education and the care of their kids. So, time will tell what choices they'll face if we go through another lockdown that is quite possibly imminent. And the implications for children's financial security and career advancement are grim, unless, of course, we center gender equality in the plans for pandemic recovery.
Now, we've seen how important keeping schools open is to making sure that women can stay in the workforce, because the burden is falling on them with childcare, with their children's education, should children have to stay home. But what we do see, and you've mentioned already, is women's central role to the economy and to rebuilding an economy that's been really decimated by the pandemic. What steps need to be taken to see that women can maintain that role and grow as they were beyond this pandemic?
That's a good question. We know that long before the pandemic, the lack of access to affordable, quality childcare across Canada was a key barrier to women's economic independence and career, and their ability to advance. Now that the women's workforce participation has reached its lowest point in 3 decades, this issue has been very urgent. The recent speech from the throne, however, indicated some promising momentum towards a national childcare system. In fact, those words were in the actual throne speech. So we'll be watching to see if the government follows through. We certainly hope they will. Childcare, I think most people, especially those who have had the experience, will agree it is a vital piece of the puzzle for meaningful gender equality, and truly enables higher quality of life for women, their families, and communities.
You know, as finally, because we have a short conversation here, as I mentioned off the top, that we started working together in late March, early April, in response to the pandemic and to address vulnerable communities affected by the pandemic. But it wasn't just our 2 organizations. There were hundreds of organizations that were involved in idea sharing and concrete actions. I just wonder, from your point of view, how important this period has been to seeing various civil society organizations come together to collectively address these issues and hopefully make some progress and make things a bit better for people throughout this.
You know, it's a really good question. And if ever there was a time for collaboration, it was now. I don't think there's one single organization out there that could actually put a stake in the ground and say, we're the ones to do this. It takes all of us. And so the role that CTF-FCE plays and that of the Canadian Women's Foundation on all the others that we collaborated with was critical. The increased risk of gender-based violence has been a huge concern, and we know that it became even more severe at the height of the pandemic lockdown. So to help people reach out, the Canadian Women's Foundation, for example, and I'm sure other organizations, have been raising awareness about one of the tools that we shared now around the world. It's called Signal for Help, and it is done in this way while you're on a virtual meeting such as this. And it's a way for those who are at risk to silently signal to someone that as you are on a video call, as we are now, that you need help. And the signal looks like this, as I said. So it helps. It's a silent way. If you have anyone around you, it'd be very difficult for folks to pick that up. Since we started promoting it, it's been really had great take up around the world, in fact, and we're now working with partners in various countries to actually spread awareness about it. In April, we also launched a national emergency fund, and others have done this as well. So we did this to help support the specific services, including those that help women facing gender-based violence during the pandemic. And so we raised more than $350,000 and counting. We're very proud of that, and have begun distributing these funds to grassroots level organizations that are at risk of shutting down. And we know that because many of them told us they weren't sure that they could make it. So we have also been honored to work with the federal government, where we partnered with them to access $13 million that we then distributed to sexual assault centers and other gender-based violence intervention services in Canada. So these funds will be of benefit to over 450 providers across the country, and that's a pretty significant reach.
So Paulette, obviously the work is going to continue for some time. The pandemic's going nowhere. So I just want to thank you. I want to thank the work of the Canadian Women's Foundation and our collaboration with the Canadian Teachers Federation. I hope that it's ongoing and that we can find a way to continue helping women across Canada and beyond, perhaps. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. It's been a pleasure working with CTF-FCE on this. I look forward to other opportunities where we can collaborate because it's together that we're going to get this done.
Thank you, and talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Owen, thank you very much for joining me today. It's great to talk about this for World Teachers Day. Just to get right into it. You run an organization that's dedicated to bringing children and youth together. But in March, this abrupted all of our plans with the pandemic, and we've seen how this has affected schools and education. How's it affected Boys and Girls Clubs?
Well, it definitely has had a major impact. We're a fairly large organization across the country, 200,000 kids at 725 locations, 7,000 staff. And the first thing was we couldn't operate. So there were about 6,000 of those staff at the outset that were laid off. But clubs are amazingly resilient and bounce back fairly quickly. What we saw was clubs starting to bring some staff back and starting to do things like deliver food to families who were in need, do mental health check-ins, wellness check-ins with families, and then start to figure out how they would adapt programming, because we're very much a place-based, got to come to our clubs to participate. We had to start adapting our programs to figure out how we dealt with the fact kids were not in clubs.
Matt, how did you go about doing that? I think that's a big question for me, is everything you do is based about in person, bringing those kids together. You move these programs online. How do you keep them safe online? And is that even possible today to do that?
So first of all, online is an interesting place for us as an organization because we actually have run a campaign for several years called Unplug to Connect, because we felt that the online space and screens have really had a detrimental effect on youth. And it was really time that youth come to our clubs and disconnect from their screens to connect with individuals. And part of that is over 120 years of history developing really strong protocols around keeping kids safe, making sure that staff are given lots of training, that we ensure that staff are never alone with children, all sorts of protective mechanisms and layers we can put in place in that kind of environment. When you take us online, that changes. And I think for us, that was a real hurdle at first. Was we were used to be the ones sort of saying, hey, doom and gloom if you're online, be careful. And now we were saying, we're going to meet you online. So we're going to use tools like Facebook and Zoom and everything people have heard about that had security issues or other fake news in them. And we realized what we had to do was start teaching both our staff and the kids that were participating about those risks so that we could find ways to enhance their knowledge and teach them how to remain safe online. So a lot of this was about also adding protocols in terms of how do you replicate what we did offline in the online space to keep youth safe. So very quick adaptations of learning, pulling resources from others. We'd already done a bit of work in this area before the pandemic, so this was just accelerating some of this work to really understand how you keep people safe, put them in small groups, connect, and really put rules and parameters around what you can and can't do in the online space.
So we saw firsthand that work and that, like you said, having to adapt throughout the spring when you were involved with us with the Coalition to Keep Kids Safe, with the federal government and many other partners. And you were working with our third priority in that realm, connectivity. And obviously moving online, that was your focus. And you had one successful proposal that was funded by the federal government. Could you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it became really critical to pull together all the resources and to look to the federal government for assistance to get these kids connected and to do it in a safe way. We were really excited to work with many government departments, in fact, to make this a reality, to work with the Canadian Women's Foundation and the Canadian teachers to really make this possible, and to say, first of all, let's create quality programming in an online space. Let's figure out how to adapt this programming to make sure that they've got hours and hours of valuable programming. So it was about saying we're going to get 10,000 vulnerable children and youth connected. We're going to give them about 30,000 hours of safe, high-quality online programming, and also make sure that they had access, because a lot of them didn't have access to things like internet or the tools to get online. We find that, unfortunately, in a lot of the neighborhoods we serve, there may be one device for the entire family. There may not be Wi-Fi. They may be on one very limited data plan and trying to hotspot. So it was about getting them those tools very quickly, giving them high-quality content. And then, of course, the part of the proposal that we thought was also fundamental, the sort of content. And the second piece was keeping them safe, making sure that what they were doing online was done in a way that respects what we understand as the strong boundaries of protection and maintaining the safety, giving protocols, giving guidelines, et cetera, for youth workers, for teachers, for others to understand how to make sure that they're operating in a safe way and that they're educating children about staying safe in an online space.
You bring up a really good point that this pandemic's not going anywhere anytime soon, and that equity issue is front and center with everyone moving online. How important is it that the federal government continue to fund projects like this and be involved to help?
Well, at the time we're talking, the challenge that we see is, of course, a second wave is predicted, and we may be on the rising crest of that side of that wave. And so we know that there will be more need for some time to come. We're going into the cold winter months here in Canada where people are going to be stuck inside, maybe doing a lot more of this kind of thing on screens and in Zoom. So the need to continue this work and to do it extends throughout this time. And it extends not just because that's the way things are going to happen, but because it's created a whole host of other issues. We're seeing things like mental health and stress, that includes anxiety and depression, exhibited by our youth. They've talked about this. We've seen lack of activity. We've seen that youth are showing signs of just being physically inactive, and hoping that we can create programming that means you might be looking at a screen, but you're moving, you're doing things, but also that you're talking about and getting help for some of the other issues that you're dealing with, about not being able to connect with the people you normally would. So this is about mentoring and connecting you to someone else who cares, connecting you to resources if needed that you might need to access, and making sure that throughout, however long this is, children and youth have access to those really vital resources of an adult who cares, an adult who can participate and engage you, and do it in a safe manner, and help undo some of the burden that happens when we see the mental health pressing down on lots of people right now.
Owen, thank you very much for taking part in this, and I wish you all the best, and thank you for all the great work that you're doing, and we hope that we can keep up the collaboration.
Great, thank you very much, Andrew.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed these conversations and hopefully learned about how the CTF-FCE has and continues to respond to this new reality. Now, a few words from some of our leaders across the country and the president of the Canadian Teachers Federation, Shelley Morse, before we hand it back to Lily and Nadine. Thanks for joining us, and happy World Teachers Day.
Au personnel enseignant de l'Ontario, du Canada et de partout ailleurs dans le monde, merci. Aujourd'hui et tous les jours, célébrez vos réalisations. Vous faites un travail remarquable.
To all teachers, Koyunamik, Nakumik, thank you.
Teachers, thank you for your unwavering dedication and the flexibility you have shown during the pandemic. You make a difference.
Hi, I'm James Bedford, President of the Manitoba Teachers Society. On behalf of our 16,000 members, happy World Teachers Day. We're all in this together, so thank you for everything you do. Merci beaucoup, Megwich.
To the incredible professionals who in these challenging times are serving our students and our communities. Thank you and happy World Teachers Day.
My name is Dean Ingram. I'm the president of the Newfoundland Labrador Teachers Association. Teaching is the profession that makes all other professions possible. To all teachers, thanks for all that you do.
On behalf of the Ontario Teachers Federation, thanks to the teachers across Canada and around the world for their dedication to young people. During these challenging times, educators have once again risen to the occasion. Thank you.
This is Matthew Miller with the Northwest Territories Teachers Association. I want to thank teachers across Canada on this World Teachers Day.
From Saskatchewan, I want to wish teachers in Saskatchewan and right across Canada a big thank you for everything that you do for our students and our communities.
On behalf of the Alberta Teachers Association, thank you for your unwavering dedication in these uncertain times. Happy World Teachers Day.
Happy World Teacher Day. From the British Columbia Teachers Federation, thank you so much for everything you do for your students, especially in these trying times.
Thank you to all teachers across Canada for your dedication to students. Parents, students, and their communities appreciate your tireless efforts on the front lines of education during these challenging times.
Hey teachers, wishing you a happy Teachers Day. We know the work that you do makes the world a better place. All the best from the Nova Scotia Teachers Union.
Thank you, teachers, for all you do. From PEITF, in solidarity with you.
I want to thank you for all the work that you've been doing, your dedication, your creativity. Merci beaucoup pour tout le travail que vous faites.
On behalf of the Yukon Teachers Association, I would like to say thank you to all the teachers on World Teachers Day.
Hi, this is Clint Johnson from the BCTF and the CTF. Just want to say a huge thank you to all the teachers all over the world for the work you do every day, making the world a better place.
Teachers, hold your head high. You're doing an amazing job in a very difficult time. Happy World Teachers Day.